On today's episode of the Deer Park Roundtable, we talk with 7th grade ELA teacher Lauren Troxell. Now, Lauren has quite literally been a wildcat for her entire life, attending K through 12 here at Deer Park Schools.
I'm a Howard kid through and through.
One of the things Lauren talks about in this interview is the transition from a student to now viewing these teachers that you had as colleagues. And she had some really insightful things to talk about some of those teachers.
11 years later, and I still don't know what you're saying. Like, break it down for me.
This was such a fun interview to do with someone who has spent so much time in Deer Park, all the way from kindergarten up to now her adult life. She has a very interesting perspective about why Deer Park is such an interesting place to be. So let's get right into it. Welcome to the park, where the stories of our incredible staff and faculty go beyond the classroom. From their passions to their personal journeys, we are diving into what makes our Deer Park community truly unique. This podcast isn't just about their roles as educators, it's about who they are as individuals, the lives they lead, and the impact they make both inside and outside of school walls. This is the Deer Park Roundtable. Lauren Troxell.
Hello, Jake Snyder.
Welcome to the Roundtable.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So you are a Deer Park alum. Mm-hmm. Let's get this out of the way first. Are you a Holmes kid or are you a Howard kid?
I'm a Howard kid through and through.
So it's kind of, I don't know that this exists anymore because even our oldest kids really didn't explain Holmes and Howard and what it was like when you were here.
So it's weird because the transition happened even within my own family. So when we were in, it was a split, Holmes and Howard, and I still to this day could not tell you why, like where the line was, because my friend that lived further away from Holmes was a Holmes kid, but I was a Howard kid. But yeah, we had 2 elementary schools. Yeah. So kindergarten, first, second, third, you were there at Holmes or at Howard. So moving to Amity in 4th grade was huge, huge. You didn't know half your class. Yeah. So it was just wild. And so my sister and I grew up like that. And then by the time my brother was in elementary school, he's 10 years younger than me. Yeah. He was just a Holmes kid. Everybody was at Holmes by then.
So when you grew up, you come back to Deer Park, not as a teacher at first. You kind of explain your role once you got out of college, what your plans were. Yeah. Was this what you anticipated happening? How did you end up here?
So I went to Bellarmine University in Louisville, and my intention was to stay there. I graduated with a political science degree in a very turning time in politics during the 2016 election. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I didn't want to be in politics, so I moved home. And I kind of just hung out, which anybody that knows my mom knows that was not cool with her after about 2 weeks. So I ended up getting my sub license, and I worked in retail and subbed a little bit. But really, my start in Deer Park was cheerleading. Yeah. So I reached out to Eric Taylor, who was the athletic director at the time, because I knew there was a position open, and that kind of is where it all started with junior high cheer.
Yeah. So, and then you took over as the varsity cheerleading coach in
2 years later. So I think it was 2019.
Yeah. And
so my first year coaching varsity was 2019, 2020.
And just talk about being the cheer coach, because I think that is such a huge part. We'll get into teaching, but a huge part of your life is
I love
cheer.
it. I love it. It is I love being in the classroom, but I love being on the sideline, either out on the field or on the court. I joke that it gives me street cred with the kids. I love pouring into this community what it poured into me, and I just love being on the sideline and getting to know kids outside of the academic realm. So
inside of the academics. So you subbed for a little while there, and then 7th grade ELA position, junior high ELA position. How do you get into that spot and end up there?
Yeah, so I was a district substitute basically. I came to work every day. I did building subbing in Amity, but every long-term position, whether it be a maternity leave or a sick leave or something, I would fill. So I actually filled every maternity leave of the 7th grade team within like 2 or 3 years. So I was social studies, I was math, I was science. I never did ELA. But Kelly Hibbett, the ELA teacher for literally generations, my mom had her and I did too. She was getting close to retirement and would always say like, you're gonna take over my job. But I'm a social studies teacher by license initially. And I was like, I have no interest in ELA. But I was working at a private school for a little bit, did not love it. Reached out to Jay Phillips and the principal at the high school at the time, and they gave me a chance, and now I'm licensed ELA, and I will teach 7th grade ELA for as long as they will let me. I love it.
What is it like teaching in a classroom that you sat in as a student?
Wild, 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 wild. It took a little bit of getting used to. And of course now, this summer, we just got new floors, new ceiling, new paint, so it doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of like a lot of pride when I'm in my classroom and teaching and knowing that like Kelly Hibbett was one of the best educators I ever had. And just to try to carry on that legacy and for kids to like love to learn as much as I did in that room and in the hallway and in the building is just like my ultimate goal.
Do you feel a little bit of pressure knowing that there's teachers that taught you that you're now colleagues with?
Yes, I will sit in meetings. I'm going to throw him under the bus a little. I'll sit in department meetings with Tim Hubbard, and I'll be like, dude, it's 11 years later, and I still don't know what you're saying. Like, break it down for me. So there is pressure, but there's also such a comfortability. Like, I'm sure I embarrassed myself so much as a student that I'm totally willing to go to them and say, I don't know. Please help. And I've been there and done that before. So it's kind of nice.
So you're the varsity cheerleading coach. You are an ELA teacher. You're in charge of homecoming. We're going to talk about homecoming here in just a little bit. But the balance of all of these things going on, how do you handle that? How do you put it all together day in and day out?
Yeah, it's pretty consistent from when I was a student at Deer Park to being a teacher. I like to be busy. I like to be involved. Mm-hmm. So it is a lot, but I've kind of just learned to balance it. I have a very organized calendar. I'm up here a lot, but it's kind of just prioritizing what's important, and that's important. I recently got engaged, and as we've kind of navigated what that looks like and what it means to no longer, it's not just my schedule anymore, I've had to prioritize a little bit more and take another step back or two. But things like homecoming, student council, cheerleading, Parkers, those are just non-negotiables. So I'm just going to keep doing it.
Funny you bring up Parkers, because this is actually not the first time you've been behind one of my cameras or in front of one of my cameras. We did the Parkers interview together back in 2020, COVID. We didn't know each other at the time. You weren't teaching full-time yet, correct? If I remember right.
I was just subbing.
And so yeah, we've got a little history with these mics and cameras, but Parkers is such a huge part of your life, has always been. You were in our documentary about it, like I mentioned. What is Parkers to you, and kind of just talk through what that looks like for you?
I was actually just talking about this in a staff meeting. So I'm on a subcommittee of teachers that deals with parent and student outreach. And Parkers is the program at Deer Park that gets kids involved that may not typically be involved in the athletics and in the sports that we see all over the place. Parkers gives people a voice, students a voice to do, just to showcase their talent, like outside of athletics. So just the music and the singing and the dancing and the skits, it's just awesome to see such a large percentage of our student body come together. And it's just a production. My soon-to-be sister-in-law came to see it, and she's like, this is just an out-of-this-world production that does not seem like it's a high school run show. And it is. I mean, the students run it. The students create it. And Sarah Godwin and I just kind of facilitate that. So it's just awesome to give students voice.
One of the things that always kind of has intrigued me about it is, like, we have some uber talented musicians and singers and things like that, but you don't actually have to be uber talented to do something cool in it as well.
Yeah.
You know, between the kick lines and the dances and all those different things that happen throughout it, the skits, like you mentioned. I just have always thought that that was really cool that you know, obviously if you have a great musical talent, and some of our guitar players and all of those things are really cool, but you don't have to have that to be a part of it either, or even the backstage people that, you know, aren't maybe meant to be out on the under the lights, but can still be a part of it.
Yeah. I just think it's awesome to get so many kids involved. And I mean, it goes without saying, when we have 2 weeks of practices consistently, 3 to 4 hours, and kids are showing up and loving it, and it's one of their best Deer Park memories, I think that speaks for itself.
All right, you've mentioned it a couple of times now, but I do want to touch on it. You do have a wedding coming up.
I do.
December, right?
December 21st,
All right.
First day of winter break.
How is the wedding planning going?
It's great. We're doing a small wedding. Otherwise, I'd have to invite half of Deer Park. So it's going really well. It's a little bit harder to manage now that school has started, but it's going really well. It's exciting.
Yeah, he's not a Deer Park grad.
He is
You
not.
went outside of the district for this one. So.
Actually, kind of. I met him at MVP in the district. He owns a house in the district. So, yeah, he's a King's grad. So he actually grew up with Joe Vetter's daughters. But, yeah, we met in Deer Park. He owns a house in Deer Park. I sold my house in Deer Park, but I still am in Deer Park. So
it always connects back to the park, doesn't it?
And I told him when we got together, I said, that's fine, but I'm a Deer Park till I die. I will be here.
All right. Well, it's homecoming week. So speaking, you don't have to come very far to come back home, but you have a huge role in homecoming. Just talk about your role a little bit and what the planning process looks like.
Yeah. So I am the head of student council, the advisor. And so a big part of my role is planning the student pep rally with our student council and the parade. And then getting the parade to the game and coaching the cheerleading squad through that game. The following day with the dance, I mean, Karen Henry is our senior class advisor, and she does a great job. I don't have to worry about that too much. I'm just there to support her through it all. But it's a lot of just facilitating student leadership. So our senior class officers are doing a lot. They come to me and Karen with ideas. They are ready, they're prepared. So they make it easy and they make it fun.
This is such a cool week. There's so much going on really from start to finish. Sunday night, last night, there was Powder Puff Games, which is new this year, but it's super exciting to have that as part of the week. You've got a faculty appreciation volleyball game this week, American Heart Association soccer games going on this week, obviously all leading up to parade, football games, so many people coming back. It really just showcases our little community here, and it's just such a cool part of being part of Deer Park. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's cool to go to games and see alumni and who don't have any students in the district yet, but they just come back to see it. And so many students, so many athletes, so many community members. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about teaching for a little bit, because again, I think this is cool because you don't have that. You didn't go to college saying I'm going to be a teacher. So what have you been able to do kind of over the past couple of years to hone in on your skills, become the teacher that you want to be? What's that look like for you?
For me, it's been a lot of looking at data, right? Because, and not to get data preachy, but I do a lot of work on when we test kids. I look at the results. I like to know, like, who's struggling, who's doing really well, how can I help them build. So data is a big part of it, but the other part of it is just like, I want to be the kind of teacher that I loved when I was in school. And some of that is I want to treat my students like equals, right? So it's not totally equal when they're in 7th grade. There supposed to be a boss in the classroom, but like, they're kids, they want to tell me about their weekend. They want to talk about football and their soccer games and their art shows. So just to kind of create the space and the sense of community within the classroom so kids are comfortable.
That's interesting, because 7th grade is such a unique grade, specifically at Deer Park, because you are chucked into the high school. You go from the big shot at Amity, and a lot of high schools everywhere else, you might go and have a little transition where it's 7th, 8th, and 9th, or 7th and 8th, or 6th, 7th, and 8th. Here, you're thrown into the deep end real quick. What is that like for you as a 7th grade teacher dealing with those students?
It's challenging. Yeah. It's challenging because it's not just, hi, get to know me and let's start learning. This is how we do our lockers. This is how we use Schoology. This is where the lunch line is. So it's a lot of helping students get comfortable before you can start learning, which is actually one of the things that I like the best. Like I love to think at the end of the year about where these students were at the beginning and just see how much they've grown in comfortability as well as like in ELA. But it's just awesome to see.
Yeah, very cool. What you and your soon-to-be husband, what do you guys do when you are not the 90 hours a week that you spend here at the park? What do you guys do outside of that?
So we're both are really into being active, hiking, walking. We walk Deer Park all the time. You'll see us walking around Chamberlain Park, down Plainfield. But we're big travel people. So my family's all over the place. My parents are now in North Carolina. My sister's in Florida. My brother's in Yellowstone National Park. His family's all in Raleigh. So we try to travel a lot. We like to hike, big national park people, huge live music people. So we like to go to concerts, see a lot of like live musicians. But yeah, we do spend about 90% of our time in Deer Park.
Well, it's a testament to kind of what Deer Park was to you. Yeah. I think that you spend so much time back here. And so kind of to close this out here, this community is such a unique place, and but it's somewhere you've literally lived your entire life, or dedicated your entire life to. What is it about this community that it's just so special?
I would say size, but there's small communities that don't have what Deer Park has. It's just this sense of family and the sense of seeing students as individuals that can learn and grow. When I was in second grade, I couldn't read. I was very behind. And Chris Huster, one of our board members, was my teacher. And she recognized that, and she went to my parents, and we worked on it. And I don't know that happens in other communities where there's not a sense of family, when there's not a sense of open dialogue and communication. And I just think that Deer Park does such a good job of embracing every student and embracing every staff member too in a totally different way. So I joke about Deer Park till I die, but truly, if I'm working full time, I am in a 7th grade English classroom and I'm teaching Deer Park students. That is what I want to do for my entire career.
Well, this was fun, Lauren. Thanks for doing this with us. You
Absolutely.
Got a busy week ahead of you here.
Go Wildcats.
So we'll let you go, but appreciate you being part of this, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you.